Welcome to the Loopy Pro video manual. This is a series of videos getting you up and running as fast as possible with Loopy Pro. In this episode, we're going to be talking about one of the most exciting parts of Loopy Pro, which is the canvas. Loopy Pro allows you to create your own looper or your own project layout with any number of loops, one-shots, buttons, dial sliders, and other controls. With a rich system of actions, you can set up on-screen widgets to control every aspect of the session on a variable size canvas that can be split over multiple pages. So from a brand new project like this, to access Loopy Pro's canvas editor, we click on the pencil icon on the bottom left-hand corner. When you do this, Loopy Pro's canvas looks radically different, and I'm going to take you through it and show you how you can build your own. First of all, at the very bottom in the center, we have the grid, we have assigning color, and we have groups. Sticking with the grid for now, you can see it's split up into different rows. To add a row in any direction, you can see little arrows either pointing up, pointing down, pointing left, or pointing right. Along the bottom of the canvas, you can see all the different elements that can be added. All you have to do is tap an element and that will automatically add it into Loopy Pro. So let's go through them. The loops and the one-shots are known as clips. So we have a circular loop, which we can add in. And as you can see, when I tapped it, it just added it in on a third row. We have a one-shot. Now bear in mind with this, we're going to be adding things and we're going to be changing things. Clips, whether they're loops or one-shots, can be any size. So you just need to know a couple of gestures so you can control what you're doing. First of all, if you tap on any element, it will actually take you to the settings for that element. So for example, I've just tapped on a loop here and it's the settings for that loop. We can click close in the top left-hand corner. If you want to start moving things around, hold your finger down for 2 seconds and it'll either give you copy or delete. But you'll notice 4 little white dots go around the outside of that element. Now they only stay there for a minute, and then if you give it a little bit of time, they disappear. And I can actually reshape this clip however I want it to be. I can also move it around just by dragging my finger. When you move it around, again, those 4 little white dots in the corners become available. So I can make this loop a little bit smaller. We can turn it into a normal size clip if you want to, but when you bring it back for a loop, it actually puts it in a circle. If I want to get rid of any element, you just hold it down and then you've got copy or delete. So I can delete it. We can hold that one down and delete that as well. If you want to delete an entire row, you can do. There's a minus button on the row. If you do delete an entire row, don't worry. The undo and redo buttons will actually bring it back. So I can undo everything I've just done step by step and bring it back to the way it was. So the first 2 elements are clips, they're audio files. The next elements are widgets. The way to think of widgets is widgets are controls that you can add to your project or layout and configure them to perform a certain amount of actions to help control the session. This gives Loopy Pro a very deep level of customization and configurability. You're basically making your own interface at this point, but it's just done by touch and visuals. So the first widget is actually just a button. And I say just a button, but it can do so many things. It comes up as grey to begin with, but you can recolor it. And again, you can resize it and put anything you want on it. If I give it a single tap, you'll notice it's changed. It doesn't look like a clip does. First of all, you can rename it. As soon as you do this, it's really handy because it actually shows it on the screen. So if we come out of the clip editor for a second, it shows it right in the middle. It doesn't have to be words. You could even use emojis if you really wanted to. So we could do that right here. And then when we come out of the clip editor, that heart is right in the middle. This is your looper, so design it how you want. Buttons perform actions based on press and release. But as you can see here, there is absolutely loads of different gestures you can do, including toggle, long press, swiping in any direction, hold and release, the list goes on and on. But by default, you'll be looking at a tap, which is a press, or release. The next 3 widgets are sliders and dials, and these are incredibly useful for continuous value actions. Things like volume or pan or adjusting a parameter, maybe a gain or a delay or a distortion or a drive on an AUV3 plugin. So first we have the circular dial, we have a horizontal slider, and we have a vertical slider. So if I was just to come out of the canvas for a second and we to use these, you can see if I move my finger across, this is a horizontal slider, and then when I let go, it will stay where it is. Same with the vertical one, and same with the circular dial. And with the circular dial, it's actually got the same user interface that as certain elements of the mixer has. So if you drag your finger up and down, you can actually bring it back out and get much more control. Now, as you're looking at my canvas right now, I've just added them in. Again, I can tap on these and change the order of what they do. I can also hold my finger down and I can completely reshape this. So if I was to move it over here where there's some space, I can make it as big as a loop. I can reshape this to be really, really thin. I can reshape this to be just over here. I can move this to be just over here. And it doesn't matter where you put it. It doesn't have to be in the confines of the main lines within the grid. As you can see, the dial is over and so is the horizontal slider. I could add another section just by tapping on the right-hand side here, and I could move them all over to here. It's entirely up to you where you put it. It's your loop canvas. Now, so far I've been only adding one of each, but of course you can add multiple ones. So we can continue to just add and add and add. And as we keep adding, it's just going to fill the space and add them in wherever you need them. And Loopy Pro will just get bigger and bigger and bigger. Now that's a pretty intense canvas. I'm just going to take a couple of things off. The next widget is an XY pad. When you tap on this, this does take up an entire square block of the canvas. But again, you can actually resize it to what you want. XY pads give two-dimensional controls over a pair of continuous value actions. Again, if we just tap on it, we can change the name, but we can also customize. If we tap on customize, it's asking us for the X value, the Y value, the press, the release, and the hold. Again, if you've got things already set up, you want to change an EQ, you want to filter and sweep through it, you can do this with an XY pad. You can configure the XY pad to be always on or hold. In hold mode, the effect will be enabled with touch, and when you let go, the effect will be disabled. So as I draw my finger across now and I let go, it will stay in that position until I move it again with my finger, depending on where it's going to be. So you might want to give this a name if you have a few of them, and you might want to change the color so you know what it is. So for this example, I'll just call it a low pass. So I know that that's the low pass one. If I had more, I know which one I'm adjusting. Again, if I was to add in a couple more, maybe we'll add this in and just have some smaller ones. So now when I'm controlling things, I can actually control multiple things at the same time, and they all work independently. And yes, you can control more than one at the same time with multiple fingers. Now the last widget is called the clip slicer. And I actually use this myself and find it really, really valuable. When we add a clip slicer in, you'll see 16 different buttons. It's a very special widget, and according to Michael of Loopy Pro, it's the first of many to come. It gives you an interface to play with that has specialized clip functions. What the clip slicer does is exactly what it sounds like. It slices your clip up into different bits. And I use this for drums and beatboxing, but if we tap on it, you can see here we can actually reorder it. So it starts with 16 squares, but you can actually have it a different way. You can have it with 8 squares or just 4 squares. And what it can do is really, really clever. It can divide your loop up into equal parts, but by default, it divides it on the transients. So if you have sounds like a kick and a snare, it'll try and divide those up as best it can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this to a clip. I'm going to add it to clip number 1, which is the orange clip. Let's give it a name, call it drum slicer. Watch what happens when I create a beat on clip number 1. So you can see there that the clip slicer has figured out there are 8 parts to this drum beat, and it's used the transients, and each one I can tap on individually. It's really cool. I really like this. Now from that beat, I now know it's only 8 parts. There's nothing on the last 8 parts. I don't need the full 16, so we can go back in here, change it to 8, and now when we play it, so we can also assign a color. So why don't we give this a nice sort of bright color here so we can see it moving. So for things like this, what you have to realize as well, it's going to play that part of the sample. You can see it moving there. But this is a really, really cool element, but you may want to change it over. So when you go into it, instead of divide transients, you want to divide equally. So now when we play it, you can see it's in time with the BPM. It's really cool. I really like it. Now the last element you can see actually has an A, and that's actually just text. So we can add a piece of text in, and you can literally put it anywhere you want to. You can make it bigger, of course, and we can change the text size. and you can change the color. It's just a visual representation. Maybe you've got things sectioned off. You want some text there to say this is the effects section, and it allows you to add text and label up your canvas. Now, the last element that you can see on screen is pages, and that's located on the right-hand side with an A sign and a plus button. Right now, we're on page 1, and we can have different pages if we need them. Loopy Pro is clever enough to understand we've only got one page, so when we get out of here, there is no option to change a page. However, if I was to add a page, you can see that zoomed down, and if we now click here, it gives us an A and a B. It is super fast, so it's really good for performance-based, and you can switch between stuff. So maybe once you've got all your loops, you can actually switch across, or maybe you're using it as a verse and a chorus. This is aesthetically pleasing for design, and you can create a number of separate pages on your canvas, and you can switch them by tapping on the A and the B, but you can also do it by an action itself, or you can do it by a MIDI controller. Now, the alternative you can do is you could hold down a long press on one that's already been created. You can rename it. But if you want to create something and copy the content that you've got from page 1 to page 2, if you hold down the plus button, to copy will copy the original elements that's on the page and move it over to page 2 as well. If you hit copy with content, it will include the clip content. So if you have loops already in there, it will move that over as well. Or you can do blank page. That's just the same as pressing the plus button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do copy with content. So now you can see that on the orange clip there, it's already copied that loop over. So if we were to move between, we can obviously go between an A and a B. Let's just change B and just get rid of a couple of things and move things around because we don't need them for our second part of the song. So as you can see, we've got our first one, which is A, and as we move over to B, it looks really different. You don't have to have any clips on B. It could be all effects, or the other way around. You could actually just have all the loops on B and all the effects on A. Or you can have a mixture of the both. It's totally up to you. One thing about renaming, you can only use one letter or number, or you can use an emoji. So let's rename this. And we'll rename it the heart one, and then this one we're going to rename, and it's going to be the thumbs up one. There we go. Now the next part of the canvas is actually assigning color, and we do this by tapping the paint button on the editor toolbar. All the major elements flip round, and you can see all the colors that are available on the bottom. So right now we've got the green one activated. I can just tap on the orange one, the yellow one, the green, the blue, and the purple. Or I can add a color. To add a new color, you click the plus button next to here, and you can see it adds the next color available. If you remember from episode 4, when you add a color, this will also be added into the mixer and is a new channel. Loopy Pro automatically adds colors in a certain order, and this is so you can maintain the maximum visual distinction between the colors. So it keeps them ordered by hue. So let's just continually add colors here, and as you can see, if we add them all in, it looks like a rainbow. If we just very quickly go over to the mixer, you can now see they're all here as well, as it adds it in as each individual destination. And of course, you can then use that color for whatever you like. But for this tutorial, I'm just going to keep it nice and simple. So we're going to have our 5 colors here and add another one, which is purple. So a total of 6 colors. So all I need to do if I want to change a color of anything is make sure I've got that color selected. You can see when I tap blue, the blue clips actually just flashed for a little bit. So I changed the purple one. I'm just going to tap on one of the elements. So I can tap on any element here and change it to whatever color I want. Of course, I can just change it straight away back. And you must remember that this is actually really important because it depends on how you're going to hear that in the mixer. It's not just a visual thing to make it look nice. It's actually an audio element and how you've got everything assigned. Now, if you really, really want to, what you can do is you can tap on each color and go into the settings for that color. And we do that by tapping the pencil on the color itself. So it says it's blue, and you can see here it says settings shared by all clips in this color unless overwritten at the clip level. So we can actually change this to any color you wanted to. So if you do really want dark green, we can now make that dark green. And you can see here my blue clips have now changed to a dark green color. So you can have any color you want in any order that you want. Now, in order to change the colors on the widgets, you need to tap them on the grid editor. And you can see here in the top right-hand corner, if I just tap this slider, I can say that's volume 1. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tap here and you can see the colors we've got available. Now you can have any color you want, but from a visual aspect, if you want to think, well, this is going to be the volume slider for the yellow loops, then I'm probably going to make this yellow. Also, it's good to title it how you want it. So let's change the value on this. What are we going to do? We're going to adjust a parameter. What are we going to adjust? We're actually going to adjust a specific clip or a specific color. And of course, I'm going to do that. So I'm now going to adjust the yellow ones. So you can see now it says adjust the yellow volume. Nice and simple. So let's get out of here. Let me show you this working. And of course, when I let go, it will stay at that volume because you've told it to be a continuous action. Same with buttons. If we go into it, we can actually tell the button to do something, give it a color if you want to. Of course, you can say, well, what I want you to do right now is I want you to solo, or I want you to stop the whole session. We can do color actions. So if you want to stop certain colors, let's just do that now. So we'll go play and stop, specific color. I want you to stop the orange ones. So now we know that's actually going to play and stop orange color. And we can even play around with the quantization of that if you want to. Let's have the whole track playing. You can see I've just stopped it there without having to tap it there. This is why all this is available to you, because you could have all your loops set up, but not actually visually see them. So maybe you've got all your widgets and controls on page 2, and you can controlling them knowing full well that the loops are playing in the background on page 1. Now, the last part I want to talk to you about of the canvas is play groups. Play groups are just a grouping mechanism for you to group loops together and play either all at once or one after the other. It's totally up to you. So to configure this, we need to tap on the group button, which is the last one on the bottom, just here. You can see at the bottom it says drag clips to group and ungroup. Tap group clips for options. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the first row all together as one group, and that's going to be my verse. And then the second row is going to be my chorus. All we need to do is drag one next to another. And you can see there's a slight hue across them. You can see they're all there. So just going to drag them all together like that. And if I tap anywhere, it doesn't matter as long as it's within that boundary. This now is play group 1. So we've got 3 options. We've got all groups play and stop together. So playing or stopping any loop will cause the other ones from the same group to play and stop as well. You've got one loop at a time. So when playing one loop, any other playing loop from the same group will stop. Loops play independently. So loops play and stop independently of each other. So let's do the same for this section. And quite simply, I just want these to be all loops play and stop together as well. So what I'm now going to do is I'm now going to add in a couple of different things. But what I want to do is I want to change these over so they're actually playing from one section to another. So all we do is go back into groups. Let's just tap one of them. So we'll tap the orange one. It doesn't matter because it's all one group. And what we're going to do is we're going to do mutually exclusive with. So it's mutually exclusive with group number 2. So therefore we go play all loops and stop together. It's mutually exclusive with number 2. Let's turn that on. So now if we actually go and hit play on group 1, they'll all play together. And then if I go to group 2, they automatically sort each other out. So group 1 stops, group 2 plays in time. And that's really, really cool and really handy and really easy to sort out. Ungroup anything, what you can do is you can just slide one across. You can see it says ungroup there. That'll ungroup that one from the group. But what you can also do as well is we can tap and we can just remove the clips there so there's no group anyway. So we've ungrouped them all now. The alternative we can do is I can group all the drums together, all the basses together, so you can change in between them, but the rest of the tracks will be independent of each other. So I'm going to group these two together and group these two together. So now you can either say play all together, so maybe the first loop is a kick and a snare and the second loop is a hi-hat, or we can say play one loop at a time. So when you play one loop, the other loop from that group will stop. This is really cool, again, for verses, choruses, or for an A, B, and a C, whatever you want to do. So now we have our first 2 loops playing. So we have our 2 loops playing. I'm going to move over to the second orange one. This is really, really cool, and it's a really great way to section your songs off or give yourself some customization with a load of different loops. Now, a word on widgets. When you go into any widget, you can actually give them a command or you can give them an action. So we can say, let's just change the value and just a parameter on one thing. So we can say a specific color, let's go with lime, and now that's going to do that, no problem at all. But we can add another one. So we can actually say change the value and add just the parameter on another one. Let's just change it onto dark green as well. And now what it's going to do is it's going to control the volume of both the lime and the dark green one, and I can prove that by going into the mixer. So if I go into the mixer and we just start moving this up and down, look at the mixer, it's actually moving it at the same time. So you don't have to have one command per widget, you could have one command for the whole lot. You could do a fade on certain sections. I can even go back into the editor. Let's tap it again. Let's do another change where we can do another color. Let's do magenta. So now you can see all the different values, and that's just on value change. You've then also got press, release, double tap, two-finger tap. So you can get really complex with different widgets. So one widget can do multiple things. Now, if you're a little bit stuck for inspiration and you're not sure how you want your looper to be, the great thing is that Loopy Pro has some sample projects that you can just load up and start playing with. So to do this, go to the top left-hand corner, we go to projects at the bottom there, and you can actually see sample projects. At the time of recording this, there are 7 available, and some have been made by Michael himself, and others have been made by a couple of different artists. So let's go to the RC505-esque one. And this looks like an RC505. We've got our 5 loops there, labeled 1 to 5. We have our record, mute, solo. We've got a volume for each one, and you can see that's affecting the master there. We've got a play all, we've got a stop, and we can actually go into loads of different things like the effects. And right at the top here, you've actually got notes from the user. So swipe right or left to clear the tracks, swipe on the X button to clear all tracks, and then the phone button allows you to adjust your phone, mic, and record loops. Swipe down on the track first to select it. So you've got loads of different things you can do here. We've got effects, and we can use this filter straight away. And then there's your looper right there. Let's have a look at another one. This is 8x8 scenes. Look at the size of this. Now I've recorded a couple of things into it, and the way this is set up is it's 8 loops and you've got scenes. So as you tap each scene, it will play only that scene. But also the microphone is set up in such a way where it's on threshold recording. So if I was to actually record something in, it won't record in until I make a noise beyond a certain threshold. Boom. 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 The really clever part is the buttons on scene 1, 2, and 3 are the ones that are set up for the grouping. Let's have a look at another one. This one is called Circle Song Tutorial. If we go into it, it looks like there's loads going on, but actually it's a tutorial.
Hello. If you want to make music in an improvised way, using your voice, beatbox, body percussion, things like that, then here's a little tutorial for you.
Let's have a look at one more, which is Shamanic's live production template. Now, as you can see here, there's absolutely loads going on. And if we go into the mixer, you can see there's absolutely loads there with lots of different things going on and with lots of different effects as well. So this actually has loads going on it. And if you want to have a look here at the top, what Shamanix has done is put a tutorial actually on page 1, but you start on page 2. Then on page 3, you've got even more. Something like this really highlights how personal and customizable your looper can be. And for me personally, this is what sets Loopy Pro apart. You don't need to leave other apps to get effects to come in. You have a built-in mixer, and now you have your own loop canvas where you can build your own looper. In this series of videos, I've been itching to get to this episode because I think it's the most exciting and shows you what's really possible with Loopy Pro. Now in the next episode, we're going to be having a look at the settings, everything that's in this page to help you customize your looper even further.